I know you've seen it. I'm sure you sense it. If it's in your calendar or not, I don't know, but I know you've seen it at Costco. I know you've seen it at the grocery store. I know you see it anywhere there's kosher food. It's that tower, that 10 to 15 box tower of matzah that's being built and erected everywhere all over this city. The Kasher LePesach sections are filled, and your urge to buy pasta and crackers and snacks in bulk is fading, because Pesach is coming, Rosh Chodesh Nisan is tomorrow, and Passover is just 2 weeks away. This year, Rabbi Barashel and Sela and I are going to see my family in Denver for Seder. And yes, I will actually miss all the new traditions that we've built here in Toronto around our table with all the generous hosts that have made sure that we've never been alone on Pesach, as they say in the Haggadah, next year in Canada. But I am very excited. This will be the first time I get to bring my little girl back to the home that I grew up in for Pesach, to create the warm and lasting memories which are some of the fundamental building blocks of my own Jewish identity. Growing up, Pesach was the moment when we opened up the pickles that my family made during the Yamim Noraim the previous year. It was marked by excitement when you discovered which finger puppet was waiting for you at the Seder table, so that during the Magid you know which role you had to act out in the story. Plastic frogs were hidden throughout the house so that while everyone was hunting for the Afikomen, there was a backup contest for most frogs, a great way to keep the peace between me and my 3 sisters. And there were, of course, the classic tastes of Pesach, the boxes and boxes of Passover candy that my parents had to buy as part of the day school fundraiser, the potato kugel, my grandmother's brisket, and in the morning, matzah brai. And when you were finally done with all the leftovers, that first satisfying taste that's never as good as the next one of matzah pizza. I'll admit, growing up, I thought my father, the rabbi, led a very long Seder, that he read every single line. And these days, and I love you, Dad, I know you skip a lot, especially when the meal is over. But I'm going to practice something called tzimtzum. I'm going to practice tzimtzum, and I'm not going to mention it while I'm at your table. Tzimtzum is, of course, this idea of contraction, that we make ourselves just a little bit smaller, that we take up less room. We make it possible for other people and other ways of thinking and other traditions to take the spotlight, to fill up the space that you've opened up. And on Pesach, I can imagine no fuller room, no fuller place than my parents' home this year. We're going to have 4 generations, a minimum of 3 rabbis, a full Beit Din per Seder. We're going to have Ashkenaz and Sephardic traditions. We have gefilte lovers and gefilte haters. We have vegans and carnivores. We have Canadians, Americans, Republicans, Democrats. It's going to be a heck of a 2-night event. Our Parsha this week, Pikudei, is also the heck of an event. It is the completion, the final chapter of the book of Exodus. Our ancestors, too, this week discovered a place that was overwhelmingly full. And that place is none other than the Mishkan. After spending nearly half the book of Exodus focused on the details of its construction, it is complete. And in this week's Parsha, God lives up to the promise that God made weeks and weeks ago. Va'asuli mikdash v'shachanti b'tocham. If you build me a mikdash, if you build me a sanctuary, then I will dwell amongst you. And God does, as Abigail beautifully read for all of us. Moses finished the work. The cloud covered the Ochel Moed, the tent of meeting. The kavod of Adonai filled the Mishkan. And Moses could not enter the tent, the Ohel, for the cloud was upon it. So much had the kavod of Adonai filled the Mishkan. The Mishkan is complete. The Ochel Moed is filled. There is somehow no room for Moshe, because God is in there, and God is infinite mystery, miraculously suspended in a very finite space. And when infinity fills a room, there is no space for anything else inside of it. Literally, it's full. But we know that this will change. We know that when the Torah resumes its narrative in the book of Numbers, Moses will enter into the Ochel Moed to encounter God and speak to God many times. So what changes? How does Moshe find a way into the Ochel when it is literally full of God? And the answer is, once again, Tzimtzum. The great commentator Shmuel ben Meir, the Rashbam, argues that this is a common phenomena in the Mishkan and the temple, that the presence of God is overwhelming, it fills the entire space, it allows none entry, and then God chooses to contract God's self, to draw back, to contract towards and even into the Ark of the Covenant. And this is, of course, the same theological argument which argues for the very existence of the world. Think for a moment. If you have an infinite being that fills all creation, there can be no part of creation which is not that being. And our sages call this idea the Ein Sof, the without end. And it is only when God retracts God's self, practicing tzimtzum, limiting the Ein Sof, literally creating a differentiation between the endless allness that is God and something else that is with God but not only God, that creation can even have the opportunity to come into existence. If a totally infinite God can create a near-infinite existence by actively not taking up the near-infinite space where existence will be, yeah, I know, that's heady, that's up here. But when you talk about infinity, it always gets that way. The thing you need to understand is that if God can make room for a near-infinite existence, then God can do the same thing on a much smaller scale. And the infinite can make room for a very finite being in a very finite space, while still being in that space. In relationship to infinity, there is no difference between 1 and 100 billion. I'll say that one more time. In relationship to infinity, there is no difference in size between the smallest thing that you can imagine and the largest thing you can imagine. And therefore, our rabbis argue God is equally invested in both the possibly vast cosmic wonders and the single tiny human lives. It is this vastness and this focus, all of which comes from the practice of tzimtzum, of contraction, that becomes the defining theological trait of Jewish thought, that there is a God who fills the world and yet still makes space for individual lives. And I want to move briefly from that infinite vastness and that sacred smallness of one person in the Mishkan to our own Mishkan, here at Holy Blossom upstairs, where we sat earlier this week. Tzimtzum, that sacred contraction, is also a value that allowed us to do something this week that I'm very proud of. It allowed us to host a successful iftar meal, a breakfast for Ramadan, with Muslim neighbors and Muslim allies on Monday night. And here, when I say tzimtzum, it is the willingness to make room, to open our sacred space to others, to take a risk, and to be vulnerable. Not in the sense of vulnerability to danger, or to attack, or to violence. Vulnerability in a different way. I know myself and many other rabbis have spoken often and publicly about how in the days after October 7th, there was a terrible silence from the groups that we thought were our friends and our allies. And sometimes what came after October 7th was actually worse than silence. But a few weeks after October 7th, the Intercultural Dialogue Institute, the IDI, one of our Muslim partners, who's primarily composed of Turkish Muslims that are persecuted and targeted by their own government. We're seeing that happen again right now, just this week, in fact, in Turkey. They reached out to me. They invited me to join them at their international gala held in downtown Toronto, and they seated me with other VIP dignitaries and faith leaders and MPs. And the year and a half since then, we have person-to-person made outreaches, some of which have worked out and some of which have not. There's been invitations to dinners and breakfasts, breakfasts and cultural moments, for them to join us in this sanctuary for our Gifts of Light concert, and even when a representative of their group came with us on the Walk with Israel this year. But it has been personal. It's been one-on-one, panim al panim, face-to-face. Which is why when the IDI reached out a few weeks ago and asked us if we would host them collectively for an iftar meal to break the fast on Ramadan, we were both excited and nervous. This was a chance to publicly reestablish our relationship and would also require a great amount of tzimtzum. We would need to open our sacred space to strangers. We would need to welcome in people who do not regularly interact with Jewish people and whose familiarity and appreciation for our people and our customs, their knowledge of what has been going on the last year and a half in Israel is limited, and it's often skewed. And we were going to need to take a chance and hope that those who were coming to eat with us were coming in good faith, the same way that we would open our doors in good faith. And our faith was rewarded. I didn't see a single sour face amongst the 60+ people who came to dinner. We ate, we learned, we heard beautiful music, and at the end of the evening I stood up, much as I'm doing right now, and I made a very chutzpahdik proposal. And this is it. As God fills the world, fill up your home this Pesach. We have 3 different initiatives going on right now here at Holy Blossom for Seder. The first is our classic Seder matching program. For those of you who need to be hosted. Maybe you need to be hosted because something changed in your life. Maybe you changed life stage. Maybe you changed family situation. Maybe you're new to us. Maybe you're new to Toronto. Maybe you're new to Judaism. And we want to help you find a place to enjoy the Chag with good people and good food. And Rabbi McCarroll and Marnie Turner, our membership director, they will help you find that place. And we are so grateful to those of you who want to host, who open up your homes year after year and continue to do so. And if you are a host, and you want to host, and you want to open your home, I have 2 options for you. The first is to welcome a newcomer Israeli family. Israelis that have recently moved to Toronto, a community that we here at Holy Blossom have constantly made outreach to, we're constantly offering support to. And if you want to do that, if that sounds meaningful to you, if that sounds important to you, be in touch with me. And I'll put you in touch with JIAS, the Jewish Immigration Aid Society, and I will find you a newcomer Israeli family, and they will join you for Seder, and it will be a beautiful mitzvah, and I am happy to help you fulfill it. But the last of these options is to invite someone into your home for Pesach, for Seder, someone who is not Jewish. Invite a dear friend, invite your neighbor, invite your coworker, or, and this is the chutzpah, invite one of those Muslim neighbors who joined us from the IDI. Because not only is it a fulfillment of our Pesach promise, let all who are hungry come and eat, not only is it repaying their kindness in turn, but it's because studies show the number one reason why non-Jewish people stand up for the Jewish community when they encounter society's anti-Semitism is because of a personal relationship. It's because of personal experiences. It's because they know you. It's because they've had dinner at your home. It's because they know your children's names. It's because they've done something with you, and they stand up for you out of love for you. Inviting those who are not us to Seder is not only a mitzvah, it is one more way to reinforce the beautiful Canadian mosaic that we want to live in and make it a mosaic that continues to stand up to anti-Semitism. To practice tzimtzum this Pesach comes in many forms, but there is one universal truth that remains and underlies them all. When we contract, when we make room, the sacred places in our lives do not get smaller. The sacred in our lives becomes even more full. Shabbat Shalom and an early Chodesh Tov.